You know what's funny? So many men spend their entire lives trying to figure out what women really find attractive. They hit the gym, chase status, buy the clothes, get the car, and still feel invisible. But here's the truth that nobody really tells you: the most attractive thing a man can do has nothing to do with how he looks. It's the way he carries himself when no one's watching, the quiet confidence, the calm self-assurance, the kind of presence that says, I know who I am and I don't need validation to prove it. To see, a lot of men today are struggling not because they're unattractive, but because they've tied their worth to external things: attention, approval, or how someone responds to them. And when that approval doesn't come, they start to feel lost, like they're failing at something they can't even define. But attraction, real, deep attraction, starts from a man's ability to stay grounded even when life isn't going his way. It's emotional independence. It's being able to say, I'm good within myself, even if the world doesn't clap for me today. Psychologists call this self-differentiation, the ability to stay connected to others without losing yourself in them. And that's what makes someone magnetic. When a man has that balance, women can sense it instantly. He doesn't react out of insecurity or fear. He moves with purpose, not pressure. He's not chasing connection, he's inviting it. But here's the challenge: our culture doesn't really teach men how to do that. It tells them to perform, to compete, to earn love instead of being love. And over time, that mindset creates emotional exhaustion. So if you want to be truly attractive, not just physically, but in your energy, your presence, your decisions, it starts with how you talk to yourself when no one's around. It's about how you handle rejection, how you treat your own emotions, how you manage your time and habits when nobody's checking in. So maybe the real question isn't, what do women want? It's, what kind of man do you become when you stop chasing validation and start building self-respect? Because that shift, that inner confidence, that emotional stillness isn't just attractive, it's rare. And in today's world, rarity is what stands out the most. Most men spend their entire lives chasing the idea that attraction is something they can earn through appearance, money, or success. But real attraction begins with something much quieter and far more powerful: emotional independence. Emotional independence is not about isolation or coldness. It's about having a solid sense of self that doesn't crumble when life gets uncertain or when other people withdraw their approval. When a man reaches that level of inner steadiness, something changes in his energy. He no longer feels the need to prove himself in every room he walks into, and that calm self-assurance becomes magnetic in ways that can't be faked. People, especially women, can feel it immediately. It's not in his words or his style. It's in the way he looks around, the way he listens, the way he doesn't need to be the center of attention to know he matters. So much of modern masculinity has been built on external achievement. From a young age, men are told that their worth is based on what they do, not who they are. They learn to compete, to compare, to measure their value in numbers: how much money they make, how many people admire them, how many women they can attract. But underneath all of that, there's a quiet anxiety, the fear that without those things, they won't be enough. This is where emotional dependence starts to form. It's when your confidence lives outside you, in other people's opinions, in your image, in your accomplishments. You keep chasing, hoping that one more win will make the insecurity go away, but it never does, because what you're really missing is that unshakable internal anchor that tells you, I am enough even when I have nothing to show. When a man starts to build that inner anchor, everything about him begins to shift. His body language softens, his conversations become more authentic, and his relationships stop feeling like battles for validation. He doesn't get easily offended because his self-worth isn't on trial in every interaction. He doesn't panic when someone pulls away emotionally because he knows he can stand on his own 2 feet. This is emotional independence, and it's one of the most quietly powerful forms of attractiveness there is. It's what separates a man who needs love to feel whole from a man who gives love because he already feels whole. Psychologically, this independence is rooted in self-differentiation, a concept introduced by family therapist Murray Bowen. It's the ability to stay connected to others without becoming emotionally fused with them. In simple terms, it's knowing where you end and others begin. A man with high self-differentiation can listen to criticism without collapsing, can care deeply without losing himself, and can love without fear of rejection destroying his sense of worth. This balance makes him emotionally stable, and stability is one of the most attractive traits any human being can have. It creates trust. People feel safe around someone who doesn't lose himself under pressure, who doesn't need to control others to feel secure. But getting there isn't easy. Most men have never been taught emotional literacy. They were told to man up, to suppress vulnerability, to see emotions as weakness. So they grow up strong on the outside but shaky inside, craving validation from a world that's happy to give it, but only temporarily. The cycle repeats. He tries to prove himself, gets temporary attention, then loses it and starts the chase again. This loop keeps him externally driven and internally empty. To break free, he has to learn how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. He has to learn how to self-soothe, how to find calm without needing someone else to provide it. This is where emotional independence starts to form, when a man stops outsourcing his peace. You can see it in small moments. The man who doesn't text out of desperation when someone ignores him. The man who doesn't let failure destroy his focus. The man who can be alone without feeling lonely. These are not just random personality traits. They're signals of emotional maturity. He's not chasing a high from attention. He's building peace from the inside out. That kind of man doesn't need to fake confidence because his confidence isn't based on outcome, it's based on self-acceptance. He understands that rejection doesn't define his worth. It only reveals compatibility. He doesn't need to impress anyone because he's already impressed with the person he's becoming. Women pick up on this energy almost instantly. There's something irresistible about a man who doesn't flinch when things get awkward, who doesn't crumble under pressure, who can listen without defensiveness. It's not arrogance, it's calm assurance. It's knowing that he doesn't need to dominate a conversation to feel powerful. He doesn't need constant reassurance to feel loved. He doesn't need to control someone to feel safe. This balance between connection and independence creates natural attraction because it allows the other person to relax. No one wants to carry the emotional burden of someone else's insecurities. A man who's emotionally independent lifts that burden off everyone around him. He gives without expectation, and that makes him unforgettable. From a psychological perspective, emotional independence also builds resilience. Life is unpredictable. Relationships end, careers change, people disappoint you. When your sense of worth depends on those external things, you live in a constant state of anxiety. But when your worth comes from within, you can weather storms without losing yourself. You become adaptable. You stop reacting out of fear and start responding with clarity. This mindset doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you centered. You still feel deeply, but your feelings don't control you. You can experience heartbreak, failure, or criticism and still move forward with grace. That steadiness is what draws people in. It's the rare quality of someone who knows they can handle whatever comes their way. Building that kind of inner strength takes daily practice. It's not about affirmations or pretending to be positive. It's about self-awareness, being honest about your fears, your triggers, your emotional habits. It's about noticing when you're seeking validation and asking yourself why. It's about learning to regulate your emotions instead of escaping them through distractions, substances, or constant social validation. The more a man practices self-awareness, the more emotionally independent he becomes. He learns to meet his own needs before expecting someone else to fill them. He starts to trust himself again. And when a man trusts himself, others start to trust him too. Emotional independence doesn't mean cutting yourself off from the world. It means engaging with it from a place of strength, not need. It's the difference between sharing your emotions and dumping them, between seeking support and demanding rescue. It's being able to say, I want you in my life, but I don't need you to make me whole. That kind of emotional clarity is what creates healthy relationships. It allows both people to grow without suffocating each other. It turns love into a choice, not a dependency. When men start living from this place, their entire demeanor changes. They stop over-explaining themselves. They stop taking things personally. They stop trying to please everyone. Their conversations become more authentic, their posture more relaxed, their energy more grounded. They begin to attract people. Not by trying, but by being. Because real confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It doesn't need attention, it commands respect. Many men confuse emotional independence with detachment, but the two are opposites. Detachment is fear in disguise, it's withdrawing to avoid getting hurt. Emotional independence is courage. It's staying open to connection while still holding your sense of self. It's being vulnerable without being fragile. It's knowing that you can give love fully without losing your identity in the process. This kind of strength isn't flashy, but it's rare. And that rarity is what makes it so attractive. The journey toward emotional independence often starts with pain. It starts when something breaks, a relationship, an expectation, a self-image, and a man is forced to look inward for answers. That pain becomes the invitation to grow. Instead of blaming others, he begins to reflect. He starts asking deeper questions. Why do I react this way? What am I afraid of losing? What do I really want out of life and love? And through those questions, he starts to see that the thing he's been searching for outside, approval, attention, validation, was something he could only ever give himself. As he learns to do that, he becomes more emotionally intelligent. He starts to understand his patterns and stops being ruled by them. He begins to notice when he's seeking validation and gently redirects that energy inward. He replaces comparison with gratitude, self-criticism with compassion, and control with trust. These are the inner habits that make him emotionally independent. They don't make him perfect. They make him real. And realness is magnetic. In a world where so many people are performing for attention, emotional independence stands out like quiet strength in a noisy room. It's the reason some men can walk into a space and command respect without saying much. Their energy says it all. They're not looking for something. They've already found it within themselves. And that more than looks, status, or charm is what makes a man truly attractive. Confidence is one of those words that gets thrown around constantly, but very few people truly understand what it means. Most men think confidence is about looking strong, talking loud, or walking with a certain swagger. But those things are only surface level. Real confidence doesn't come from what you show the world. It comes from what you tell yourself when no one's around. It's built through self-respect. And not through performance or approval. It's the quiet belief that you are enough, even if nobody claps for you. And that kind of confidence doesn't just make a man attractive, it gives him peace. The problem is that most men have been conditioned to perform for validation. From childhood, they're taught that they have to earn their worth. They have to be the best, the strongest, the funniest, the most successful. Every compliment becomes a hit of dopamine, and every rejection feels like a personal failure. Over time, their sense of self becomes tied to how others see them. When they're admired, they feel confident. When they're ignored, they feel small. This dependence on external validation creates an emotional roller coaster where their mood and self-esteem rise and fall based on circumstances they can't control. The moment people stop clapping, they start to question their value. True confidence begins when a man stops chasing that applause. It starts when he learns to measure himself by his own standards instead of everyone else's. Self-respect is the foundation of that shift. Self-respect is not arrogance or pride, it's integrity. It's the discipline to do what aligns with your values even when it's hard, even when no one sees it. It's the quiet decision to stay consistent with what you believe, even when it costs you something. A man who respects himself doesn't need constant reassurance because his validation system runs from within. He doesn't pretend to be perfect, but he knows he's honest, he's reliable, he's trying to grow. That internal honesty becomes the soil where confidence grows naturally. When your confidence comes from self-respect, your actions and words start to align. You no longer say things to impress people. You say them because they're true. You stop trying to manipulate how others see you and start focusing on who you actually are. This authenticity feels rare in a world built on appearances, and that's why it's so magnetic. People can sense when someone is grounded. They can sense when a man isn't performing but simply being. He doesn't walk into a room to prove anything. He walks in to contribute something real. That energy doesn't just attract people. It calms them. It's the kind of quiet strength that makes others feel safe to be themselves too. The men who are truly confident are not those who never doubt themselves. They're the ones who've made peace with their doubts. They've learned how to live with imperfection. They understand that confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward anyway. They don't need to be perfect to feel worthy. They just need to stay honest and keep growing. That acceptance of imperfection is a massive part of self-respect. Because when you respect yourself, you stop punishing yourself for being human. You start giving yourself the same empathy you'd give someone you love. That inner compassion creates resilience. And resilience is the secret ingredient of real confidence. Psychologists often describe self-confidence as the result of competence plus self-trust, but both of those are built through repetition and consistency, not performance. A man doesn't wake up confident, he earns through daily habits, waking up early when he says he will, following through on promises, even small ones, taking care of his body, his space, his responsibilities. Every act of self-discipline adds a small deposit into the bank of self-respect. And every time he keeps a promise to himself, he strengthens the voice inside that says, I can rely on me. Over time, that voice becomes louder than the opinions of others. That's when external approval starts losing its power. Confidence built on self-respect looks different from the kind that's built on performance. It's quieter, it's humbler. It doesn't need to dominate or prove. It doesn't need to be right all the time. It's open to feedback, not because it doubts itself, but because it's secure enough to grow. This kind of confidence allows a man to admit when he's wrong without feeling weak, to walk away from arguments that go nowhere, to say no without guilt. It's not defensive, it's discerning. And that discernment comes from self-awareness. When you know your own value, you stop needing to fight for it in every interaction. One of the biggest misconceptions about confidence is that it's something you either have or you don't, but confidence is not a fixed trait. It's a relationship with yourself. It's built through the way you talk to yourself, the boundaries you set, and the standards you live by. A man who constantly breaks his own promises will always feel weak inside, no matter how good he looks on the outside. But a man who honors his word to himself walks with quiet certainty. His confidence doesn't depend on how people respond to him because it's built on self-trust, not applause. You can take away his money, his looks, his status, and he'll still carry that same steady energy because it lives inside him, not outside. It's important to understand that performance-based confidence always has a breaking point. The moment the performance fails, when he loses his job, gets rejected, or ages out of his prime, his sense of worth starts to collapse. But when your confidence is built on self-respect, it doesn't crumble with external change. Because it's not about what you have, it's about who you are. You know your principles, your values, your effort. You know that even when you fall short, you show up again. That consistency builds unshakable belief. And when life tests you, and it always will, you don't panic, because you've already proven to yourself that you can handle difficult things. A man who lives with that kind of confidence moves differently. His energy doesn't feel rushed. He's not constantly checking if people approve of him. He's not comparing his journey to others. He understands that confidence isn't about having everything figured out. It's about trusting that he'll figure it out as he goes. That faith in himself allows him to stay calm in uncertainty. It's the reason some men can handle chaos with grace while others fall apart. Their center of gravity is internal. They know that confidence is not about control, it's about adaptability. When you respect yourself, you don't fear change because you know your worth isn't tied to what's changing. You can see this difference clearly in relationships. A man who relies on external approval will often seek validation through attention, trying to prove his desirability. But a man who's confident through self-respect doesn't need to chase anyone. He's open to connection, but not desperate for it. He doesn't play games or pretend to be someone he's not just to win affection. He doesn't need to be needed to feel valuable. And ironically, that's what makes him more desirable, because people are drawn to those who don't depend on them for emotional stability. He brings peace, not pressure. He listens without trying to fix. He gives without keeping score. That kind of energy feels refreshing in a world full of performers. From a psychological standpoint, confidence rooted in self-respect also protects against anxiety and depression. When you live by your values, you reduce the internal conflict between what you think, what you say, and what you do. This alignment creates mental clarity. You stop wasting energy pretending, defending, or overthinking what people might think. Instead, you focus on what you can control: your choices, your effort, your attitude, and over time, this consistency rewires your mind. You start to feel proud of yourself. Not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. You stop seeking happiness through perfection and start finding it through progress. Self-respect also helps men navigate failure. Most people see failure as proof they're not good enough, but confident men see it as information. They don't attach their worth to outcomes. They know one loss doesn't define their value. They extract lessons and move on. This detachment from external results gives them emotional freedom. They can take risks, try new things, and face rejection without internal collapse. That resilience is what keeps their confidence alive, even when things don't go their way, because confidence isn't built by always winning. It's built by not losing yourself when you don't. In today's world, where image often matters more than substance, real confidence has become rare. Social media has turned validation into a currency, and many men unknowingly spend their emotional energy trying to maintain an image instead of building inner strength. But here's the thing, no amount of likes or attention can replace the quiet satisfaction of self-respect. You can't fake the peace that comes from integrity. You can post the best photos, say the right words, perform the ideal version of masculinity. But if you don't respect yourself when the lights are off, none of it will last. The men who radiate genuine confidence are those who have made peace with who they are, flaws included. They've learned to live with honesty instead of image building. That kind of confidence takes practice, not perfection. It starts with self-awareness, knowing what you stand for and refusing to compromise it for short-term comfort. It grows through self-discipline, doing what's right, not what's easy. It matures through self-compassion, treating yourself with the same patience you'd offer someone you love. Each of these builds a layer of self-respect, and when those layers stack up, confidence becomes effortless. You stop trying to act confident, you just are. Because you've earned the right to trust yourself. A man who lives by self-respect doesn't chase validation because he understands that approval is temporary, but integrity is permanent. He doesn't perform confidence to impress, he embodies it through consistency. He knows that being respected by others means nothing if he can't respect himself, and that truth becomes his compass. It guides his choices, his relationships, his work, and his presence. That's what makes him stand out, not his charm or looks, but his energy. The energy of someone who doesn't need to prove his worth because he already lives it. There's something quietly powerful about a man who walks into a room and doesn't demand attention but still gets it. He's not loud, he's not trying too hard, and yet people notice him. They notice the steadiness in his eyes, the calm way he speaks, the way he seems untouched by chaos. That's the power of a grounded mindset and calm presence. It's not about dominance or intimidation. It's about emotional stability. In a world where so many people are reactive, anxious, and desperate for validation, groundedness feels rare, and that rarity makes it unforgettable. When a man carries himself with quiet composure, he gives off an energy that says he's not fighting life, he's moving with it. That energy draws people in without him having to chase. A grounded mindset starts with self-awareness. It's about understanding your emotions without letting them control you. It's knowing how to respond instead of react. Most men grow up in environments where emotional control is confused with emotional suppression. They're told to stay tough, not to cry, not to feel too much, not to show vulnerability. But that conditioning doesn't create grounded men. It creates emotionally disconnected ones. Real groundedness doesn't come from ignoring emotions. It comes from understanding them. It's the ability to recognize anger without exploding, to feel sadness without collapsing, to experience fear without running. That emotional regulation is what builds calm presence. And calm presence is magnetic because it represents safety. People feel safe around someone who is emotionally stable. When you think of the most attractive kind of man, it's rarely the one who's always trying to prove he's in control. It's the one who actually is in control, not of others, but of himself. He doesn't need to dominate a conversation. He doesn't need to impress anyone, and he doesn't need to react to every little thing that goes wrong. His calmness is not apathy, it's strength. It's the quiet message that says, I can handle it. And that message is deeply attractive because it signals emotional maturity. Life is full of uncertainty, and a man who can stay calm in the middle of it gives off an unspoken assurance that he won't crumble under pressure. He becomes the emotional anchor in any situation, not through force, but through stability. From a psychological perspective, calm presence is connected to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence isn't about being overly sensitive. It's about being aware of your internal state and managing it effectively. A man with high emotional intelligence can observe his emotions without getting consumed by them. He can recognize that frustration, insecurity, or jealousy are just signals, not definitions of who he is. He uses that awareness to act with clarity rather than impulse. This creates trust because people can rely on him to be consistent. He doesn't shift unpredictably with his moods. That consistency is what gives a man presence. It's the quiet authority that doesn't need to announce itself. Calm presence is also deeply tied to nervous system regulation. When someone is grounded, Their body language, tone, and breathing reflect it. They speak slower, their posture is open, their gestures deliberate. People unconsciously mirror the energy of those around them. So when a man is grounded, others feel more at ease just by being near him. This isn't about pretending to be calm, it's about actually being calm. That comes from taking care of your body and mind, getting enough sleep, managing stress, eating well, spending time in nature, and creating mental stillness through things like meditation or deep focus work. These practices lower internal chaos and build the kind of stability that radiates outward. When a man invests in that internal balance, it shows. He becomes a calming force instead of a chaotic one, but most men never get to experience this kind of peace because they're always running from themselves. They fill their days with distractions, work, social media, validation, entertainment, because stillness feels uncomfortable. When they finally slow down, they're forced to face their own thoughts, insecurities, and fears. Yet that confrontation is where real groundedness begins. It's when you stop running from your inner world and start making peace with it. You begin to see that you don't have to fix everything instantly, that you can sit with uncertainty and still be okay. This inner patience translates into outer calm. You stop reacting emotionally to every challenge, and instead, you start responding with intention. That shift changes how people perceive you because it changes how you carry yourself. You become centered instead of scattered. Being grounded also means not being controlled by the opinions or emotions of others. Many men live on emotional autopilot. They feel good when people approve them and miserable when they don't. This dependence creates a fragile sense of self that's always swaying based on external feedback. But when you develop a grounded mindset, you stop giving that power away. You start seeing others' opinions as perspectives, not verdicts. You can listen without internalizing, care without clinging, and stand firm without becoming defensive. That steadiness makes you emotionally independent, and emotional independence is one of the most attractive traits a person can have. It shows you're not easily swayed or broken by life's ups and downs. You remain consistent, which is rare in a world of emotional volatility. Calm presence doesn't mean being emotionless, it means being emotionally secure. You can express feelings without losing composure. You can argue without attacking. You can disagree without needing to destroy. This ability to hold space for emotion while staying centered is what creates emotional gravity. People sense it. They sense that you're not reacting out of fear or ego, but from clarity. That's what makes conversations with grounded men so engaging. They're not defensive, they're not performative. They're not waiting for validation. They're just present, fully there. And that presence is intoxicating in a world where most people's minds are scattered in 1,000 directions. In relationships, calm presence changes everything. When a man is grounded, his partner feels safe. She doesn't feel like she has to tiptoe around his moods or constantly reassure him. His stability gives her freedom to relax into her own femininity or vulnerability. He doesn't get pulled into emotional storms, he helps navigate them. That doesn't mean he's perfect or unbothered. It means he knows how to stay centered through discomfort. He listens without rushing to fix. He communicates without shutting down. He can hold emotional tension without running away from it. That's emotional strength at its highest level, not resistance, but endurance. It's knowing how to stay soft and strong at the same time. In professional life, calm presence commands respect more than aggression ever will. People trust those who don't lose control under pressure. A man who can remain calm during conflict, who listens before reacting, who responds with measured words rather than emotional outbursts. He becomes a natural leader. His presence communicates competence. Others look to him not because he demands authority, but because he embodies it. This composure gives him influence not through fear, but through respect. He becomes the kind of man people want to follow, work with, and learn from. That's the quiet power of groundedness. It doesn't shout, it attracts. Grounded men are also deeply rooted in reality. They don't live in fantasies or illusions about themselves or others. They see life for what it is, unpredictable, imperfect, and sometimes painful. But they don't let that discourage them. They stay anchored in truth. This honesty with themselves is what keeps them stable. They don't chase highs to escape lows. They don't build their identity on fleeting things like validation or image. Instead, they focus on what they can control: their mindset, effort, integrity, and peace. This inward focus creates a kind of confidence that can't be shaken by external losses. Because no matter what happens around them, they know who they are inside. And that's what makes them unforgettable. Psychology shows that people are drawn to emotional stability because it signals safety. The human brain is wired to seek predictable patterns, especially in relationships. A grounded man provides that predictability through his calm energy. When he says something, he means it. When he makes a decision, he stands by it. When he faces stress, he doesn't collapse. That reliability builds trust faster than charm ever could. Charm might attract attention, but calmness keeps it. It creates a sense of security that feels rare and irreplaceable. In that sense, a grounded man doesn't compete with others for attention. He simply earns loyalty through consistency. Developing a grounded mindset requires daily awareness. It's built through small, consistent actions, taking time for silence, observing your thoughts before reacting, slowing down your speech, breathing deeply when you feel triggered, and practicing gratitude even in chaos. These habits teach the body and mind to stay balanced. Over time, you start to notice that you're not as reactive. You handle stress better. You don't rush to judgment. You listen more, speak less, and think clearly. That clarity shows in everything, from how you make decisions to how you move through the world. It becomes part of your identity. And people can feel it before you even speak. There's also a spiritual side to calm presence. It's the understanding that not everything needs to be controlled, that sometimes the best response is patience. That silence can be more powerful than reaction. When a man embraces that mindset, he starts living with a sense of flow instead of resistance. He doesn't fight life's rhythm, he adapts to it. This acceptance doesn't make him passive, it makes him wise. He stops wasting energy on what he can't control and focuses on what he can: his choices, his mindset, his presence. That shift gives him a natural aura of confidence and grace that no amount of external success can replicate. You can see this quality in the way grounded men handle conflict. They don't raise their voices to prove a point. They don't resort to ego battles. They stay centered, they listen, and they respond with clarity. This ability to hold tension without breaking is what makes them trustworthy. It shows emotional depth and control. It shows that they can handle complexity without falling apart. That reliability is deeply attractive because it signals strength and emotional maturity. People feel safe investing their trust in someone who doesn't let emotions dictate behavior. And that safety is one of the most powerful forms of attraction there is. The truth is, calm presence is not something you can fake. You can fake confidence, fake charm, fake success, but you can't fake stillness. Stillness comes from inner peace, and inner peace comes from knowing who you are and being okay with it. It's a man sitting alone, content. It's a man who doesn't need noise to feel alive. It's a man who can enjoy simplicity and silence because his value doesn't depend on being seen. That quiet strength is magnetic because it's rare. Most people are chasing attention. He's cultivating peace. Most people are allowed to hide insecurity because he's sure of himself. That contrast makes him unforgettable. To live with a grounded mindset and calm presence is to live intentionally. It's to slow down in a world that's addicted to speed. It's to choose depth over noise, reflection over reaction, and understanding over ego. It's to build an inner world so strong that the outer world can't shake it. And when a man reaches that place, he becomes a different kind of attractive, not because he's trying to be, but because he embodies something the world is starving for: peace, stability, and presence.